Working for a consulting firm, such as a big five consulting firm, is very different than working in a startup, which is also very different than working in a traditional corporate America job. Today, I'm going to break down the pros and cons of each. Let's first talk about traditional corporate America. While it gets a bad rep, there are a lot of positives to it. If you work for a large company, you're going to have a lot more time. So if you want mentoring, maybe you're going back to school, maybe you are using this time to make a career transition or pivot. Working in a corporation is great. Maybe you want to have a family because you're going to have more time. The speed at which things get done, the slowest that they're going to get done is going to be in a traditional corporation. So if you're someone who's like, I want to clock in at 8, I want to leave at 5, and I want to have time for my extra things, working in a corporation is great. Additionally, there's a lot of resources. They typically have resources for learning and development. They have mentorship programs. They have different BRG groups. The downside is you can oftentimes not be learning or creating something new. The tooling that you use could be really old, or you could be working on just boring projects that aren't moving fast and there's a lot of copy paste and you don't feel challenged. The pay may be average, particularly starting new in your career. It depends on what you're trying to get out of your career at what time. The second area that you could go into is consulting. Consulting gets a bad rap. It really does burn people out. What I'm talking about is like big five consulting, right? So like the Deloittes, the Accentures, the McKinseys, Boston Consulting, KPMG, those groups. And I believe everybody should do a stint in consulting for some time because what consulting will do is give you this scrappiness, this can-do attitude, and figuring it all out. I worked in a corporation, I went into large consulting, and really what it taught me, I thought that everybody in consulting was so much smarter. What I realized is they just work way harder than everybody else. You are going to be working 10 to 12 hours days, you're traveling. And so work is your life. For a lot of people, you do burn out, but you're going to learn a ton. You're going to learn how to deliver presentations really well, how to talk at an executive level. You're going to learn how to like build a team from nothing. Like a lot of times when you get a project, you're putting the team together for that project. And so there's this sense of like scrappiness that people don't talk about in consulting, the sense of like, hey, let's just win the project and we'll figure it out later. That I think is a big, big positive. And so that being said, you can learn a ton in consulting, everything from how to respond to RFPs, how to get sales and clients, how to build teams from scratch, how to deliver a strategy, how to scrutinize over what one little thing in a PowerPoint says. You're going to learn some of the weirdest things in consulting, but trust me, all of them will be a great foundation for your career journey later on. You probably don't want to stay in there super long, hence the 10 to 12 hour days, the travel, it will be your life. Back to the pros and cons. The pros of working in like corporate America is you have like more free time. You can have a family, go back to school, like you have some wiggle room. Consulting, that's going to be much, much harder. But you probably will get paid a lot more and you're going to be learning a ton. So think about it from that standpoint. The third area is a startup. And while I know a lot of college kids want to start out right in a startup, I actually don't recommend it, particularly depending on type of startup you are started with. If it's a super beginning, like pre-seed, it's going to be hard for you to stay with that company because you've never seen what it's like to be at a company that can scale. So actually working in corporate America first is really great because you get to see what a system looks like. What I think of like the beast of the machine looks like when you have thousands of people and they all need to do different parts. You get to see what that looks like working in corporate America. When you start right out from school and go into a startup and you've never seen that, it's hard for you to understand how to build that system, or having not seen it, you won't know how to reverse engineer it. Working at a startup is fantastic if you want freedom. And what I mean by freedom is like the freedom to create, because everything needs to be developed. Your job lines are going to be super blurred because there's only a limited amount of people. It's less about this is in my job description and more about did you see the need? Go and do it and get it done. Working in a startup is amazing if you want to really expand the scope of your experience. Let's say you're in technology and you want to work more on the marketing and think about how a product gets delivered and communicated. And you're working for a startup, you're going to have more of those opportunities because it's all hands on deck, everybody chiming in for the mission and vision of the company. That being said, though, there's oftentimes limited resources, limited mentorship, and you're going to be working a lot because everything needs done and it's all hands on deck to achieve the mission. So you really have to evaluate where you're at in your life and what you want to get out of your career at that time. It's really famous for people to say you should either be earning, learning, and there's a third thing. Maybe it's not that famous. And so I oftentimes get mentees who are like, Sadie, I'm not earning and I'm not learning, so I'm going to leave. And I think that can be a good way to look at things. But more importantly, I think you really have to look at what you want from a career or a job at this time and what don't you. There have been times when I wanted a little bit of a slower career because I was building a business on the side and I was also going back to school. I typically have 2 to 3 jobs at once. That's just my normal capacity. But that's not for everybody. So what I tell individuals is design your life first based on the life you want to have. Like, when do I wake up? And what does it look like? When do I get into the office? What does my team look like? Think about what that looks like and then reverse engineer to the type of career you have. There are pros and cons to consulting, to working for corporate America, to working in a startup. There's positives and negatives to everything. There isn't one way or one thing that's perfect or right. The best thing you can do is to take a step back and design your life first. Write out your perfect day. Write out what it looks like when you go into the office, or maybe you don't go into the office. How long you're working? Are you traveling? That will help to determine and narrow your scope for your job searching. If you're looking for jobs, applying to all jobs is fine and hopefully you have good luck, but really like narrowing your scope and knowing what you want is going to make you so much more confident in interviews. And it's going to make people who are interviewing you feel like, wow, this person really wants to be in this career and this job, and I want them on my team. So having that focus, narrowing what you want is going to help from so many levels. And I hope this helps you determine your path and what is the right next step for you. All right. Thanks, everybody. And I hope you enjoyed my secret garden career chats.